Hello, my sweet summer children. In the spirit of the magical fall season, when the nights get longer and the winds howl, ghouls and goblins ascend and the witches reign, I wanted to visit Westeros, more specifically, the witches of Westeros and Essos. The first witch of Westeros I will dissect is Mirri Maz Duur. And to do this, I've brought with me a special guest, one of the hosts of History of Westeros, Aziz. What's up, Aziz?
Hey, Gray, how are you? I'm doing really well, and I'm excited to talk about Mirri Maz Duur. This is a great topic, and I think we'll have a lot of fun.
Yes, I'm so excited. So, Mirri Maz Duur is a very interesting witch, and people seem to be undecided about her. Me and Aziz had planned to do a video about the birth of dragons and Mirri Maz Duur and what she was really up to and all of that. I would say that Mirri Maz Duur is somewhat of a gray character.
Yeah, perfect for your channel, yes.
So on brand. She is first introduced near the end of Game of Thrones, and her intentions aren't really understood. I feel like she's kind of like she's a very well-written character because there have been debates spawning the age of time.
True. I mean, this book has been around since 1996, and people have been wondering what her deal was ever since then, and we haven't exactly gotten new information. I mean, how would we get new information on a character dead so long? Maybe we'll hear something. Maybe Marwyn will mention her or something, but there hasn't been a whole lot to affect those early debates. You know, we haven't gotten a lot of whole new info on how blood magic works, or how, sacrifice works, or how hatching dragons works. I mean, George called the birth of the dragons a miracle, so it's not exactly something you can look for a formula for. So, yeah, I agree with you. Mirri is a really interesting character. She's a good example of someone who you can't just put her in a two-dimensional character box and decide what she is. She's got a lot of emotions, and she's dynamic, and it's not entirely clear what she was up to and whether she kind of figured things out as she went along, or if she was just immediately set on revenge. So that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, that's what we're here to do. So I think the best place to start is basically the introduction to Mirri, where we first meet her in the books, and we actually meet her after her village has been slaughtered. It's awful. Like, the show doesn't really depict it how it's depicted in the books. It's literally the chapters, all of the chapters that she appears in are some of the creepiest chapters and most terrifying chapters in A Song of Ice and Fire.
I would totally agree, and you're right. They did kind of downplay the violence a little, which is unusual. Usually they kind of try to make sure it's very clear. But, so in the books, there's two Khalasars that converge on this hapless Lazarene village. Ogo's Khalasar, and then Drogo comes up and kills Ogo and then finishes off the Lazarene. It's pretty brutal. And this is also when we get, Daenerys saving that girl from the rapings and all that. So it's real bad.
Yeah, and the Lazarene people aren't like a fighting people, right? They're like sheep herders and farmers.
Yeah, they're pretty peaceful. We do have one example of, occasionally, there's some of them that can fight. We get that guy in that Winds of Winter chapter who's a warlike Lazarene, but yeah, there are not many of them.
So just to give you guys a picture of what was going down, I'm going to read this quote and let you know what Dany saw when she came up on it. When the battle was done, Dany rolled her silver through the fields of the dead. Her handmaidens and men of her cause came after, smiling and jesting amongst themselves. Dothraki hooves had torn the earth and trampled the rye and lentils into the ground, while aurochs and arrows had sown a terrible new crop and watered it with blood. Dying horses lifted their heads and screamed at her as she rode past. Wounded men moaned and prayed. Jaqaran moved among them, the mercy men with their heavy axes, taking a harvest of heads from the dead and dying alike. After them would scurry a flock of small girls, pulling the arrows from corpses to fill their baskets. Last of all, the dogs would come sniffing, lean and hungry. The feral pack that was never far behind the Khalasar. Like, that gives me the chills.
Yeah, and then they killed the sheep, too. Drogo's Khalasar doesn't, but Ogo's does. And Dany's like, why would they do that? And I'm thinking the same thing. Like, they're coming here to, like, get loot and slaves. Why would you kill the sheep? They can just come with you. It's just so weird.
Or you could eat them.
Yeah, eat them. Yeah, they're just, like, total destruction for destruction's sake. I mean, it's wild.
Like in season 7 of Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister says like battle and war is like sport for them.
Yeah.
So like this was like a soccer game. This was like Sunday football to them. This battle.
You get that really sad moment where that like little boy runs off and then they like lasso him and whip him and then shoot him in the back, and it's like, geez, man.
Yeah. So
lay it on thick, George.
and then the Dothraki men, they take women and they rape them, and we get Daenerys trying to save the women.
Yeah. And
Mirri gonna teach her a lesson about that, about saving.
I think that's a great place to start, because that is also how it ends with that line about what is life worth when all else is gone. And she's talking about how, she's basically saying my life is already gone. You know, I lost my whole village, everybody I knew, all the people I grew up with, all like the thing I do for a living. Like, what am I now? And that's what she turns Khal Drogo into, just a shell of what he was. So I guess one of our questions is, was that what she set out to do from the get-go, or was it some sort of plan that she formulated all along, during this ordeal, or, did the opportunity just present itself? I don't know. That's a tough call. What do you think?
So, Khal Drogo's wound.
Yeah,
that's
starts
where we're
there,
going.
Right? Yeah.
Khal Drogo's wound. Khal Drogo's wound is really bad.
It is.
It's really bad. It's not a sting. Like, his nipple is hanging off. He goes to reach for Daenerys' arm and he can't. There's like, when he stands up, a wave of blood rushes down him.
Yeah, and he's like, I can't stand, but he's like, I need no man's help. And Dany's like, I am no man.
Right, yeah. So his wound isn't a simple thing. Now, I personally don't believe, I do believe if he had listened to her, he would not have. He would have lived.
I agree with you there. Yeah, I think that there's no evidence that the thing or at least nothing substantial in terms of the healing that she tried to do seemed to be legitimate, right? Like,
right.
I think that if Khal Drogo dies from her treatment, she gets tortured to death brutally. So I don't think she's gonna just right off try to, do that, something so straightforward.
But I wonder, I wonder, I believe she knew he wasn't going to listen to her.
Oh, now that I can believe also, yeah.
So let's go over what she did to heal him.
Okay.
So they take Khal Drogo into the temple. It's described as like a brown onion dome. Now, outside of the temple, Drogo is sitting out there like amongst a whole pile of heads. just to give you some imagery, he's just sitting amongst a whole pile of heads. So
let's go do the healing over here, away from the heads.
Right. Well, let's go back to before they enter the temple.
Right.
Mirri says that she's a healer, but the other Dothraki think she's a magi.
Yeah. They're not excited about him doing the work, about her doing the work. They think it should be their usual guys, but Drogo says, hey, there's a lot of other people hurt worse than me. We've only got so many healers. Let them do the work. And let them get healed first, because he's got to be the big tough guy. And then Mirri's like, well, and Dany's like, well, if you're just going to wait, why not go ahead and use this woman?
Right, which was, I don't know, she should have waited.
Yeah.
So a magi is basically like a person that practices blood magic, like black sorcery.
At least from the Dothraki perspective, I think that's right. Yeah, I don't know that we have like a
because
full description of what it means, but I basically agree with you there. Yeah.
I think Mirri says that a magi just means wise.
Yeah.
So what Jiki tells Daenerys is a magi lays with demons and practices the blackest of sorceries, a vile thing, evil and soulless, who came to men in the dark of night and sucked the life and strength from their bodies.
What's so bad about that?
That's kind of what happened to Khal Drogo, right?
Yeah, that is pretty similar, right?
The strength was sucked from him.
Yeah, she chants "strength of the horse go into the rider," but it doesn't really seem like that happened, does it?
No.
The wits of the horse went into the rider, but not the strength.
So Daenerys is like kind of questioning Mirri Maz Duur. She does ask her like, why do you want to help my Khal? And she says like, we're all the great shepherd's children. So she's actually convincing. But she says that she learned in a shy. She went by caravan to a shy by the shadow and learned from their mages. She says that she learned from a moon singer in the Jogos Nye, like birthing songs. And the Dothraki had taught her some things about grass, like the magic of grass and corn and horses. But the most interesting thing she says is that a maester from the Sunset Lands opened a body for her and showed her all the secrets that hide beneath the skin, and that was Marwyn the Mage. And like Jorah kind of confirms that part of her story.
Yeah, he gives her a little interview to make sure she's telling the truth, and seems to be on the up and up.
Right. So she basically gives them like her resume.
Yeah.
She basically gives them her resume, and eventually they go into the temple. He's going to let her heal him.
Yeah.
And when they go in there, they lay Khal Drogo on this blue-veined stone that had images of shepherds and flocks. So it's likely it's like an altar.
Yeah.
And then she throws like dried leaves into a brazier, and this fragrant smoke happens. And like she tells them like best if you wait outside, and they're like, no, we're not waiting outside. So they're like, that's the first hint that they're not going to listen. These people are not going to listen to you, Mirri. They're not. She let the rags of her gown fall to her waist as she opened a carved chest and busied herself with bottles and boxes, knives and needles. When she was ready, she broke off the barbed arrowhead and pulled out the shaft, chanting in the sing-song tongue of the Lazarene. She heated a flagon of wine to boiling on the brazier and poured it over his wounds. Khal Drogo cursed her, but he did not move. She bound the arrow wound with a plaster of wet leaves and turned to the gash on his breast, smearing it with a pale green paste before she pulled the flap of skin back in place. Khal ground his teeth together and swallowed a scream. The god's wife took out a silver needle and a bobbin of silk thread and began to close the flesh. When she was done, she painted the skin with a red ointment, covered it with more leaves, and bound the breast in a ragged piece of lambskin. You must say the prayers I give you and keep the lambskin in place for 10 days and 10 nights. There will be fever and itching and a great scar when the healing is done. And Khal Drogo's like, you know what? I sing of my scars. And she tells him, drink neither wine nor milk of the poppy, she cautioned him. Pain you will have, but you must keep your body strong to fight the poison spirits. What are the poison spirits, Aziz? Help me.
I suppose the poison spirits are, staph and all the bad bacteria that rot your wounds. What she calls the poison spirits.
Poison spirits.
Safe assumption, I hope. I love this bit because Drogo is all, I laugh at pain, but then he can't handle this poultice. So
he cannot.
Like, it's too itchy for him, but I laugh at pain, but itching. Oh, itching, I can't handle that.
Well, he told her. He told her when he was done, he was like, I'm called Drogo. He's like, I am Khal. I spit on pain and drink what I like.
It's really similar to like the way Victarion was about his hand, you know?
Yeah.
If you think about it, like he says the same thing. He's like, I'm not afraid of pain. He's like, it's the same lines almost, but circumstances pretty different. But also some blood magic.
Yeah, he has that. What is that? That masculine. Toxic masculinity.
Emphasis on toxic in this case, because they're both
Yes.
literally like infected and dying from it. So like that's
Yes.
the peak of toxic masculinity, not admitting that you're dying because of your, it's like, nah, it's fine, bro. Your arm is falling off, man.
Your arm is literally falling off. Your nipple is gone. This woman just did surgery on you. But I do believe that if he followed her instructions, he would have been fine.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we even have like a timeline here. I pieced this together. He tore the poultice off 6 days ago, Dany says. And Mirri says he needed to wear it for 10 days and 10 nights. And at the point where she notices it's been off for 6 days, it's only been, it hasn't been that long since the I was going to call it an operation, but whatever, the procedure.
Yeah.
So it's only been about a week or so that he starts to fade and he falls off his horse. So it all goes pretty quick.
And he was also, so he pulls the, whatever Mirri did to him, he pulls it off, the poultice.
Yeah.
And he gets another one made by an herb woman. So an herb woman makes him one of blue mud and fig leaves. And that's like more soothing and cooling. But he also starts drinking.
Like a lot, right?
Yeah. It says he'd been drinking it heavily these past 3 days, poppy wine. So 3 days, I guess 3 days after he took that off, he started drinking heavily poppy wine. And if not poppy wine, fermented mare's milk. Or pepper beer.
Pepper beer.
So literally he was getting wasted.
Yeah, and we all know that's, getting wasted when you're trying to recover from a wound. Not a good idea, No. I think I'm not a doctor, but or a magi, but I can be pretty sure that's a terrible idea.
Right. Yeah, not good. I mean, it's common sense. But if someone is doing some kind of magical ritual on you, then you should at least follow their instructions.
Yeah. Take all the antibacterial until it's gone.
Right. So Khal Drogo eventually falls from his horse. He's like, the life has been sucked out of him. The life has been sucked out of him. Flies are like buzzing around him. And he falls from his horse. And a Khal falling from his horse is like a big deal. So like Dany's like, set camp up right here. Like, I gotta heal my Khal. She goes to get Mirri. Now, mind you, Mirri is in the Khal now. And Mirri is walking. Like all the miles that they've traveled, Mirri's been walking. And she's like beat down raggedy.
Yeah.
Like I could see her probably wanting to die. Like when she comes to Daenerys, she like sarcastically is like, "You saved me again, Silver Lady. Like you saved me another time." And it just seems so sarcastic. And I think she's like, "I need you to save him. I need you to save him." Because she's like, there's nothing that can be done. And Daenerys is like, I need you to save him. And she's like, you don't ask, you tell.
Yeah.
So I think Khal Drogo said that back at the temple. Like, he was telling Daenerys, you don't ask slaves to do stuff, you just tell them to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
So she's quipping more. Like, she's getting smart with Daenerys, even in this moment.
Yeah, I think if we back up and think about like her perspective throughout all this, you're making a great point here, and I want to expand on it. The whole, like, when it first happens, she's got to just be in shock, like trauma. And when she says, "I'll heal the Khal," Maybe it might just be like self-preservation. She might be like, look, let me make myself useful. Maybe they'll keep me alive. I don't want to be raped again or murdered. So she's just doing whatever she can to try to save herself. But now, the point we're talking about, after Khal Drogo falls from his horse, like you said, it's been some time. She's been walking. She's been walking in the Khalasar, and she's, like you said, she's going to be tired and dirty and hungry. And she's had time to think. She's had the time to reflect on this trauma. And if she's coming up with some kind of plan, if she's had thoughts of revenge, this is when it's happening, when she's on that long, slow walk, trudging around. I don't think it's in those first few hours when everything is blowing up around her. I don't think you come up with a plan when you're traumatized and worried for your life. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely think it was on that long walk that she decided, I'm going to do something here.
And we have to wonder what she knows, because, this whole stallion that mounts the world thing, like later she's like, now the stallion that mounts the world will never, trample the world or whatever. But, like, what does she know about the stallion that mounts the world? What does a Lazarene healer know about this Dothraki prophecy, and why, and does she even believe it? You know what I mean? Like, she's out there walking with the rest of the slaves. They're probably talking about it, but does she actually believe it, or is she just pretending to believe it? You know what I mean? Like, there's some possibilities here that she's just like, is that really a thing? Because later when she says, she's rubbing it in Dany's face, saying, now the stallion that mounts the world will never do this, maybe she's just, sticking the knife in and telling Dany that because she knows it's going to hurt Dany. But maybe she really believes it because she's heard all these slaves talking about it, being like, oh, this is no ordinary Khalasar. This is the stallion that mounts the world, about to be born, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of room here for possibilities.
I believe that she probably does believe it, because if I was a Lazarene woman doing my business and like this massive Khalasar just destroyed everything I ever cared about, I would think, oh yeah, this is the stallion who mounts the world. Like, this is like the Antichrist or whatever. Like, she might view it. It seems she does view it as a very bad thing.
Yeah, and of course she also is pretty open to. I mean, she's a big believer in spirits and magic and stuff in the first place. So she might just be more inclined to take these things, to not be skeptical. Like a lot of us would be skeptical. Like, what? Big prophecy, what's that all about? But like someone like Mirri Maz Duur might start off by accepting it, and then maybe later it's disproven. But she seems like a not very superstitious person, so it seems like she might just be ready to accept it.
And then comes the part where we all, well, I'm not gonna say we all, where I no longer sympathize with them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a big shift, isn't it?
It's a big shift, yes. So Mirri Maz Duur says that she knows a spell. There's a spell that can save Khal Drogo. But I will give her points. She does tell Daenerys, death. Some say death is cleaner.
Yeah. And
this spell, we don't really know, like, what the spell is. We don't know who this. Well, I feel like Rhaego was the sacrifice.
May have been, or maybe part of it, maybe, or yeah.
The horse was likely part of the spell, but I'll read this quote, and then we'll go from there. Okay. The stallion kicked and reared as Ricaro. Why do they have these Dothraki names? Kuaro, Quaro. How?
At least he gets killed, so you never have to say his name again.
Right, Kuaro and Agu pulled him close to the tub where the Khal floated like the one already dead. Pus and blood seeping from his wound to stain the bathwater. Mirri Maz Duur chanted words in a tongue that Dany did not know, and a knife appeared in her hand. Dany never saw where it came from. It looked old, hammered red bronze, leaf-shaped, its blade covered with ancient glyphs. The Magi drew it across the stallion's throat, under the noble head, and the horse screamed and shuddered as the blood poured out of him in a red rush. He would have collapsed, but the men of her cause held him up. Strength of the mount, go into the rider, Mirri sang as the horse blood swirled into the waters of Drogo's bath. Strength of the beast, go into the man. So, the Daenerys thinks that the horse is going to pay for Drogo's life. She says only a horse. If she could buy Drogo's life with the death of a horse, she would pay 1,000 times over. Do you think she really thought she was paying for Drogo's life with a horse?
I think at first she did think that. I mean, Dany doesn't know anything about blood magic, and she's so young that she's also, despite being pretty intelligent and intuitive about a lot of things, she's pretty naive about a lot of things too. I mean, she's 13, and hasn't had a normal upbringing or like a normal education or anything. So yeah, so her perspective is something important to keep in mind. The part that really puzzles me is that she tries really hard to get Dany to leave the tent. And because she says it's dangerous for anyone to be in there. And if her target is Rhaego, and then I don't quite understand why she would be so concerned with Rhaego's safety. And we also have, Jorah carrying her back into the tent, and that, apparently playing a role, or maybe just Mirri said so. But if Mirri's just saying so, why get her out of the tent? Why is it so important to drive her out of the tent? And the reason we know that Mirri legitimately wanted Dany to leave is because she throws this black powder into the brazier, and the brazier. I always say brazier, but that's a bra.
I don't pronounce anything right, so
that's okay.
Trust me,
so
you're winning.
The brazierazerie, we'll just make it one word, throws this black powder in there, and immediately Irri and Jiki run away, and Dany is feels the fear, but resists it. And that's really cool, because Dany resists this fear. And why is that important? Because later in A Dance with Dragons, Melisandre explains that there's a black powder that makes people afraid. So we're pretty sure that's the exact same powder. And so the fact that Dany is strong enough to resist this powder is just a really important notice about how strong Dany is. But it's also not directly related to the rest of this. The point being, that's how we know Mirri really wanted them to leave. She actually threw fear powder at them to make them leave. So it wasn't just, I want you to leave because you can't see this. She really wanted them to go. So
do you think she could have used that fear powder to keep the people that wanted to kill her out of the tent?
Yeah, that's a very good possibility. On the other hand, she didn't stop Jorah when he did come in. Maybe that's because the spell had already progressed far enough. I mean, quite a lot of time had passed, and all those people had died. Rhaego may have already been dead at that point. Hard to say. And all the Blood Riders had fought. So if the dead Blood Riders helped the magic or impacted it in some way, then that had already happened. So if that was part of fueling the spell, whether Mirri planned for it or not, is another thing. I mean, it's hard to imagine that she expected the Blood Riders to attack her. She may have been worried about it because they had been threatening her left and right constantly. But whether they, you know what I mean? That's hard to say.
I felt like even outside of the tent, she was being affected.
Yeah, her thoughts are kind of squirrely, and she's screaming, and she's screaming about yeah, you're right. Something's a little off about the way she reacts to things, as if there's a magical influence, or maybe she's just freaking out because she sees the shadows and the singing and the voice isn't right, and it's creepy as hell.
It's so creepy. That part where the shadows are dancing on the blood-stained sandsilk, I literally got a piece of art commissioned because of that. Nice. Because I just feel like it's so creepy.
Yeah.
It's such a good chapter. Shit is going down.
George is really good at writing horror, and he doesn't do a lot of horror in a Game of Thrones, but when he does it, it's whoa. The prologue, the Game of Thrones prologue is that is horror. I mean, you could just take that story alone and just forget the rest of A Song of Ice and Fire, and that's a standalone horror story.
Right, some of these chapters could really be standalone.
Yeah, this one wouldn't quite work as standalone because you're who are all these people?
True.
But still, if you could rewrite it just a little bit, and so you could explain who some of the people are, then yeah, it would be standalone. It would be awesome.
Yeah. So another thing that really interested me about that quote And it made me think of the Children of the Forest. Is the blade that is hammered red bronze and leaf shaped.
I agree.
And covered in ancient glyphs.
It's got those vibes, doesn't it? The copper, the fact that it's bronze. It's bronze, right? Bronze.
Yeah, it's bronze.
And leaf shaped just kind of makes you think of the children of the forest and the werewoods and all that. And then you have a wolf shaped shadow just to add to it.
Yeah.
So,
and she's singing she's singing. Her spell is singing. And we know children sing the songs of the earth.
Oh yeah, great point.
So she says that she's going to be waking powers old and dark. And once she begins to sing, no one must enter this tent. No living man must look upon the dead that are dancing here tonight. So Jorah winds up taking Daenerys into the tent. So it's kind of like, is Mirri this person that knows what's going to happen? Like, she knows that Daenerys, she knows Khal Drogo isn't going to follow these rules.
Yeah.
Like, she'll try to heal him. She knows he's not going to follow these rules, and she doesn't care.
Or maybe she just has no other choice. Here's another point I think we need to bring up. We know from Jorah, and he's right, almost certainly, that if Khal Drogo dies, the Blood Riders will first of all do their thing, because it's their religious belief that they have to go die with him. So they have to either go kill the person that caused the Khal's death, or kill themselves, or both. Like, either they go get revenge and then commit suicide, or they just commit suicide because the enemy is already dead. So that we know, and they're going to kill Rhaego. Jorah makes that explicit. So if Mirri wants Rhaego to die, all she has to do is not heal Drogo, and then Rhaego will die also. So that's part of why it's kind of convoluted for her to make Rhaego the target of this spell. But it's not fully convoluted, because if we're all building up to Mirri's full revenge, which is giving Dany what Dany gave her, then she has to go through this to make Khal Drogo a vegetable in order to deliver her, what is life when all else is lost line. So it does still add up, but there's still a lot of questions about, like, when did she figure this out, or what was her intent? Like you said, how long, did she think this would happen? Did she think that she, like you said, she knew Khal Drogo wouldn't obey her medical advice, but so what is her next thought? Okay, if Khal Drogo dies, then I'm going to die too, because her life is tied to Dany's, right? Like, at this point, she's already agreed to deliver Rhaego. So Mirri at least has, like, well, at least they're keeping me around to deliver the kid. I'm at least my life is protected as long as Dany's is protected. So if Drogo dies, Dany's screwed, and so is Mirri. So if we're just thinking self-preservation, then she wants Drogo to live, but like you said, she doesn't have much control over it if he's not going to obey her. So what do you do if you're her? Like, if you're her in that spot, and Drogo's not going to obey, and he's probably going to die because of it, what do you do?
Yeah, I think what I'm hinting at is she some kind of Melisandre type of character, where you talked about in the beginning that George described the birth of dragons as a miracle.
Yeah.
So maybe Mirri could see, because in the very beginning, when she first meets Mirri Maz Duur, when Daenerys is riding by, none of the other women will even look at Daenerys. They're so scared, and Mirri just looks at her like, hi, how you doing? Like, she's unfazed. So I'm wondering if there's something, like some Lazarine prophecy or something that she thought that Khal Drogo would die, or he might live, but he's likely not going to listen to me. And I know I can go ahead and get rid of this stallion who mounts the world, but she didn't plan on Daenerys having the birth of dragons, because that was a miracle and was unforeseeable or something like that. It's a possibility.
It could also be, I like that possibility. Another one could be that if she somehow foresaw, how prophecy is always, it's a common theme in A Song of Ice and Fire, that people see a vision and misinterpret it. So, and we believe, I think you're probably on the same page with me, that the stallion who mounts the world is Dany herself, not Rhaego nor anyone else. That she's the one who checks off all those boxes. So, if Mirri thinks she needs to kill the stallion who mounts the world, then, and she thinks it's Rhaego, then, she sort of accomplishes that. But on the other hand, she may have done that thing that's another theme of A Song of Ice and Fire. It's a smaller theme, a more subtle theme, which is by trying to stop something, you make it happen, right? Like Cersei is sort of making the Valonqar prophecy come true by her actions.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think it's more that. Like, she's like how prophecies, like she actually fulfills the prophecy.
Yeah, she's trying
to make it happen.
Yeah. So that I think is a great way to, like, at least even if we don't have all the answers, I think that just fits so beautifully. And from like a writing perspective, having George do it that way, given the type of author he is and how he likes to have these kind of like, humans kind of screwing around and making things happen, not really knowing what they're doing.
The double-edged sword.
Yeah. So
definitely,
it seems to fit really well with A Song of Ice and Fire overall.
Yeah. So Mirri has always been like that character for me that I just didn't like. Like I just didn't like her because I really thought like, okay, if you want to do something to Drogo, do something to Drogo. But Rhaego is an innocent child.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that Rhaego was the price, and Mirri knew it was the price, and Mirri knew that, and it didn't matter if Daenerys went in the tent or not. And if it did matter, then Mirri knew she was going to come in the tent.
Okay. Yeah. And I wonder about that if she just got lucky in that regard, because obviously Dany didn't actually go into the tent. Jorah carried her into the tent, and I don't know if did Mirri predict that? Maybe. Yeah, maybe, because
she was crawling to the tent. Like, Daenerys was crawling towards the tent at one point. She was like, the price is too high, tell her to stop. And she's like crawling towards the tent.
Yeah.
And I think one of the Dothraki pulls her back by her hair.
Yeah, he's got her the knife at her neck, and she's still not afraid. It's so cool. Like, it's another aside, but Dany is just so tough and brave that the knife is at her neck, and she's thinking of her kid. She's not thinking of herself at all. And that's real, because you can't fake your reactions in a moment of tension like that. You know what I mean? You're like, you react. Yeah. Your inner self really comes out, right?
I'd have pissed myself.
Same. I would have been like,
These crazy dreams.
Crazy dreams. They're so
dreams.
Cool.
And she sees Rhaego, and she sees Rhaego burst into fire.
Yeah.
And when she wakes up, she doesn't wake up all the way. She's waking up, and she's like, give me the dragon's egg. And people I have seen said why would she ask for a dragon's egg and not her child?
Yeah.
Well, she's just had this dream though, and it's burned her child away. It seared her child in the dream. So, and then when she talks to Mirri after she fully recovers, Mirri says, that was a lie you told yourself.
Yeah.
And she asks herself if she knew. She has to think about that. Did she know? Was it a lie she told herself? Did Daenerys know she was giving Rhaego for Khal Drogo?
I am not sure. I think maybe subconsciously, but it's even having that thought and rereading all those chapters, it's pretty unclear. And so another theory that we've already talked about, but it applies again here, which is that Mirri is just twisting the knife, just making Daenerys suffer psychologically. We know she's doing that. We just don't know if this particular incident is part of that. So whether she's trying to blame her for it, saying, oh no, you killed your own child, because that would be a really horrible thing to have to reckon with, realizing that, no, you killed your own kid. Sorry. No, that wasn't me. You offered this sacrifice.
Yeah, I kind of feel like she did know. I feel like Daenerys subconsciously realized that was the price when she said the price was too high. I feel like by then she had realized it, and I feel like she didn't ask for him. She asked for the dragon's egg instead of him.
Yeah.
Because she knew that was what she knew.
She may have, yeah. I mean, she's had all these dreams about, obviously the pyre at the end is the buildup of her entire arc in this book. Yeah, her dreams, which she starts having dreams in her first chapter.
Right. All of her dragon dreams. And it's like the last dreams are basically like a recipe. Like they're giving her the recipe.
That's what George says. He literally says that Dany doesn't know what she's doing, but she's trying to copy the basics of what Mirri told her when she's doing the pyre. Like that, George has come out and said exactly that. Well, not word for word, but basically that Daenerys was trying to do her own spell. But when Mirri says, "What are you doing, you fool?" That's kind of like George is saying that. Like,
yeah.
The author is telling us that Dany really doesn't know what she's doing, but it's gonna work.
Yeah, and it does work. So Dany does not forgive Mirri Maz Duur for I don't know if it's for killing Rhaego. I don't feel like it's for killing Rhaego. I feel like it's for lying to her.
Yeah.
And as you say, like turning the knife. Like she wasn't honest with her about what she was paying for.
Yeah. And she didn't and she thought, and this is Dany's own naivete, because this is the part where we don't agree with Dany for sure, that Dany was like, "Oh, you owe me."
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know about that,
you.
Dany. I don't know about that. Because that's when she drops, "Oh, you saved me, did you?" And that's when she delivers her kind of like, yeah, Mirri's got that part right. Life, and that's Dany's naivete. I don't like hate her for that, but Mirri's got a point that it's when you lose everything, like you may as well have died with the rest.
Yes. And that's what she teaches. That's the lesson that she learns from Mirri Maz Duur. And that she thanks Mirri Maz Duur for her lessons.
But an interesting part is when Dany's recovering. And it's a part of Dany's theme. It's both in her dreams and this theme that she has to her entire arc is that if she looks back, she's lost. And that's one of the things is that she's not always great at taking the lessons to heart because she's got this like... She's got this destiny attitude where, she's always right because she's a child of destiny. The problem is she is a child of destiny. She did birth dragons. She did perform a miracle. So it's one thing to be like some random person that thinks that has a full head because they think they're great. Dany is great. Like she is really special.
And I think Tyrion kind of hinted on in season 8. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. But he did say like, or was Varys, like the people that speak of destiny, like you have to question their sanity. But with Daenerys, like, these things really, like these big destiny prophecy fulfilling moments were happening to her.
Yeah.
So you can't help but blame her for feeling like the way she feels. And like you say, she's always, I gotta move forward. Like, I gotta move forward. If I look back, I'm lost. And she's always like hyping herself. Like, I'm blood of Aegon the Conqueror. I'm blood of Maegor the Cruel. Like, I gotta get this done. I gotta do this.
And I think that's part of why she moves on from Rhaego kind of quickly. Because it's part of the not looking back. And in her dream, like one of those fever dreams when she's recovering, right before she wakes up, there's all this symbolism of like she sees the red door in the distance, but she cannot get any closer to it. And she's walking barefoot on the stone, and she's leaving a trail of blood. And it's like leaving a trail of blood is like, oh man, because that's what she does. She leaves a trail of destruction everywhere she does.
Bloody footprints, that's good imagery right there for creepy, witchy Westeros.
Right? And I've got a quote too. This actually relates, since you mentioned season 8, I'm going to mention it one other time, but this is less plot and more imagery. Check this quote. A great knife of pain ripped down her back, and she felt her skin tear open and smelled the stench of burning blood and saw the shadow of wings, and Daenerys Targaryen flew. So if you picture that moment with the dragon wings behind her when Drogon takes off, I think of this quote. It's like, boy, that fits so perfectly.
It does. It does. Wake the dragon. And that's like one of my favorite... this is one of my favorite chapters when she has the Wake the Dragon dreams.
I agree with you. This chapter, Dany 9, I think, like the first time you read the book, the dragons being born is the thing that goes, holy crap. But like when you're rereading and trying to parse it all together and just like really detail hunt and really get the imagery and the themes, this is the one. Daenerys 9, the before, the setup is where it's like, wow, this is the richness. This is the treasure of writing right here.
Yes, it gives me the chills every time I read it. Every time I see those damn shadows dancing on the tent in the sky red, the red sky, like, oh god, I'm just like, this is creepy. And just trying to put yourself in that, like, Daenerys should be terrified.
Yeah.
If this doesn't work, she's dead. Her child's dead. Everything burned,
and
gone.
I actually found another quote that super, like, ties into that really well. It says, she felt sad, and yet she could feel Rhaego receding from her as if he had never been. Like, damn, you just lost that kid like a day or two ago. Whoa.
But what is that? Melisandre says the fire, like the night is dark and full of terrors, but the fire burns them all away. They say there is great healing. Mirri says this. There is great healing magic in fire. Even your hairless men know that.
Ooh.
And like when she has that the funeral pyre for Drogo, she literally is transformed.
Yeah.
She literally is transformed. Like I believe it's Illyrio later tells Tyrion, like, the frightened child that sheltered in my manse was reborn on the Dothraki Sea in fire and blood. She's a true Targaryen. When she saw Rhaego burn in her dream, like, that did something to her. Like when the dragon burned her in the dream, in the first dragon dream that she has, or the second one, where the dragon, which just her and the black dragon, and he burns her and scours her and makes her new, and like she no longer wants to kill herself, and like each day after that dream, her life gets better and better. Something like fire is interacting with her in her dreams in some kind of way. And it was like after that day, like she realized that fire was good for her. And the way that Rhaego just burns and turns to ash in her dream, it's something to her emotional feelings for Rhaego in real life.
It's entirely possible. I think also maybe there's a chance, I haven't seen much to indicate this, but I've always wondered if there's a chance that when Dany is looking at when Dany's looking at Jorah after the incident, because he's blaming himself for Rhaego's death, he thinks that maybe it's his fault because he brought her into the tent. Mm-hmm. She thinks to herself, the shadows touched him as well. Yep. And so that would mean they touched her, because if there were shadows in that tent and they touched anyone who went in, then Jorah and Dany both have some sort of affliction. I haven't seen anything that really speaks to that, though. Maybe it's, maybe that was more metaphorical than literal. But it's always possible that, that's part of, especially Dany, you could see how that might manifest in some weirdness. But that's probably tinfoil with not much to go behind it.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm talking about is tinfoil as well. But Mirri Maz Duur, and the lesson that Daenerys learned from Mirri Maz Duur was that only death can pay for life. And Mirri Maz Duur is bound to Drogo's funeral pyre. And Daenerys walks in, and dragons are born. So was Mirri Maz Duur the sacrifice? Was Drogo, Rhaego, and Mirri Maz Duur the sacrifice?
I think so. I mean, a lot of people have held that theory since 1996, because those are the three lives that were most important. But Drogo died a while before, right? She suffocated him before he was on the pyre. So that's kind of a flaw in the idea. But it's possible the eggs were already, we don't have to be so strict with the timing, right? Mm-hmm. If the spell could have already partly worked, and it's like a multi-stage thing.
Yeah.
where the earlier magic sort of did something to the eggs, and then this sort of finished it off, I don't know.
And a lot of people did die. Like, a lot of people died during this period of time. From Khal Drogo's falling from his horse up until this lighting of the pyre, a lot of people had died.
Yeah. So the other factor amongst all this, the other part of the magic, the other creepy part here, as if there weren't enough already, is the actual state of Rhaego when he's born, and the very strange things that are said about him and the details. I mean, here's the quote. Twisted. I drew him forth myself. He was scaled like a lizard, blind, with the stub of a tail and small leather wings like the wings of a bat. When I touched him, the flesh sloughed off the bone, and inside he was full of grave worms and the stink of corruption. He had been dead for years. he had been dead for years. That is real. Like, what? Like, we know she felt him kicking, you know?
Yeah.
So a hole in his heart doesn't make much sense because he clearly had a heart when he was kicking. So the magic really worked on this kid, whether it was intentional or partly intentional. Damn. I mean,
dead
whoa.
for years. Like, that makes you wonder even more if this was some kind of prophetic thing for her. Like, she knew years and years ago that he was going to die.
Ooh, yeah, maybe. And and of course it's even weirder. Reviewing this after the fact, after we get so much more world building, it's not less puzzling because we don't get like more examples of blood magic like up close and personal. So we don't have that to compare it to, not really.
No.
Not much anyway. And we do have more examples of weird Targaryen babies.
Yes.
But none of them have this, like the leather wings like a bat. Yes, we've seen that. Scales, yeah. Stub of a tail, yeah. But flesh sloughed off the bone when you touched him, inside full of grave worms, dead for years, nah. That is unprecedented. We haven't seen that.
Yeah, that is. There are twisted babies or stillborn Targaryen malformed babies. And I guess like Maegor's babies were tied to blood magic.
Yeah, they were blind and they had tails and wings, but they weren't dead for years. But we didn't see them up close either. But still, you'd think that, the way rumor goes, I mean, you'd think that if
because
it would be like they would exaggerate it. Yeah.
If we believe rumors, then Tyrion was born like that.
That's right. They cut his tail off. Yeah.
But yeah, like the grave worms, like, I don't know. That's kind of puzzling when you think about it, because I've always attributed that to it's a Targaryen thing, and usually when this happens, there's always like some witchy woman around, like Tiana in the Tower or Mirri Maz Duur. But with Rhaenyra's baby, there's no witchy woman around, but they're like on the brink of a civil war.
Yeah, it said that her stress was really big. She felt super cheated, and if that could affect the baby, maybe.
She felt like they killed her baby. She said, they killed my baby.
It's true. She definitely blamed them for it. It's very true.
So maybe they could have been working blood magic from afar. Like you said, we don't have that many examples of blood magic, and this is the most in-depth one that we have.
Yeah, and we don't really have a culprit in your example there for Rhaenyra. Like, I agree that it's worth considering, but like the Greens didn't have anyone who knew blood magic, did they? I can't recall such a thing. So that's like, I agree that it's a valid theory, but it's
unless
not much
a
to support it.
Unless it was a maester.
Ooh, the maesters. That's something. There's always the maesters. That's true. They're always right there, aren't they?
The maesters are, yeah. Nah, I mean, you have a maester. Well, we know Marwyn's kind of like just a wild card anyway. Like, he doesn't even get along with the other maesters, but you do have a maester training Mirri Maz Duur, which he's showing her the secrets of the body. But what is she showing him? Like, you would think that there's going to be an exchange of information. Like, he's not just over there just teaching a clinic for the fun of it.
That's a great point. Yeah, they had to have some sort of swap. And she clearly has learned from several sources, so you'd think she'd have some things to share with him.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there was just an exchange of some other kind of barter, but you never know. But I think she would have things to teach him on the magical side.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we can wrap up our Mirri Maz Duur here. Do you have anything else you want to add about Mirri?
No, I hope we get more about her, or I hope we get something that, Marwyn is going to be on screen, so there's an opportunity to learn more about her, or at least what he taught her. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I hope George delivers some more detail, and I just hope we learn more about it, and maybe there's some more background filling her out would be great. So we have hope. There's reason to hope.
There is reason to hope, and I hope that there's something happens that we can trace this blood magic ritual all the way back to the Children of the Forest.
Ooh, yeah, because we know they do some sacrificing too, don't they?
Yes. But thank you for coming on. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. Do you want to let the audience know where they can find you? I know you're doing Valar Rereadus.
That's right, we are. Thank you very much for having me, Gray. It's a great time we always have a great time chatting. We have a good rapport, I think, and a good sense of these things.
Good time partying, too.
That's right, we did. We partied at Con of Thrones, and we will again. So as far as what we have here at History of Westeros, we're working on Valar Rereadus, which is a it's a reread project, but it's not one chapter at a time. We're going a little faster. We're doing 6 or 7 chapters a week, depending on the book. Each book has different chapter lengths, so we're kind of judging that based on that. And right now we're doing Clash of Kings. We're about a third of the way through, and we're going all the way through the books, and mostly focusing on foreshadowing, meta stuff. It's called Valar Rereadus because it's intended for people who have read it already. We're not talking about the basics. We're not talking about we're not spending too much time on, Ned hunting down Jon Arryn's murderer, for example. We have a few things to say about that, but most of all, y'all pretty much understand that already. So we're going deeper. We're looking for the foreshadowing, especially with season 8 in mind, things like that we didn't know to look for, like King Bran, like Daenerys' turn, things like that. Just all sorts of foreshadowing. We're having fun with that. So I said a lot more about that than I intended to, but it's a lot of fun. It's partly because I'm passionate about it. So hopefully y'all can come over and join us. That's History of Westeros on YouTube and any any podchaser you use, like iTunes or Acast or Spotify. You can find us there. We also do live streams and scripted episodes from time to time, and hopefully you find something to like.
And his and Nishaya's scripted episodes are like some of the best, like deeply researched A Song of Ice and Fire content. Period.
We try. We love that detail.
Yes, and like bomb. I don't even want to say anything else. Just go to his channel. I will link it below. Thank you everyone for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, click that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Okay, my sweet summer children, have a good day.